They say all the right words. They say that we take the safety of our users really seriously. But time after time after time, you find that those right words sound very convincing, but they're never backed up by action. Some of the same content that Molly saw 5 years ago is still on those platforms.
TikTok's algorithm is showing users videos that encourage eating disorders, negative body image, and self-harm within 3 minutes of setting up an account. Research from the Centre for Countering Digital Hate found that vulnerable users are bombarded with harmful videos every 39 seconds. Let's speak to two people who know the topic well. Ian Russell, who's founded the Molly Rose Foundation. His daughter Molly Russell took her own life after viewing harmful content online. Good morning to Ian. Thank you for coming in.
Morning, Asma.
And Imran Ahmed, Chief Executive of the Centre for Countering Digital Hate, is here too. Morning to you.
Morning.
Ian Russell, why on earth would it be the case that if I were to go on, and I don't have a TikTok account, but if I were to go on and set up a TikTok account, within 3 minutes, these kind of things would be in my view? Would I have to look for these things, or I mean, how does it work?
It's complicated, and it's a really good question because I think most of us don't really know the answers. In fact, the platforms say that there's probably not a single person on this planet who completely understands how all their algorithms work together to produce the feeds that they produce. But what we learned from Molly's case was that she somehow stumbled into this content. It could have been that she was looking for health advice and information. That's one of the pathways in. It could have been that it was suggested to her by some other mechanism. But once she found it, the algorithms of the platform suggested harmful content to Molly in the thousands. We only know the data from the last 6 months of her life. Molly wasn't on TikTok. It was sort of just about being invented when she was alive. But she was on Instagram. And in the last 6 months of her life, she, from what we found out in the inquest, and it was only a partial picture from the data that Meta supplied, but we know that she engaged with 2,100 harmful pieces of content, sometimes one after the other in a sort of awful binge watch session of harmful content.
And Imran, obviously, we're talking about TikTok because that's, it seems to be the platform of choice for young people. I mean, and very young as well, and very, what's the word? Just prolific, I suppose. It's just, there's so much of it and it's constant. It kind of never ends. What are your fears kind of already inbuilt into that kind of platform?
So when it comes to a platform like TikTok, 2/3 of 14 to 24-year-olds in the UK and the US as well use TikTok, and they use it on average for around 90 minutes a day.
90.
So that means that platform has their attention and is able to feed them content as per its wishes. Ian made the point that these algorithms are incredibly complex, but actually fundamentally underneath everything, underneath all the mathematics, they're very, very simple. They're about keeping you on the platform for as long as possible, so you watch ads because that's how they make their money. 98% of Meta, that enormous company that's made Mark Zuckerberg one of the richest person on earth, 98% of the revenue comes from advertising. So they're addiction platforms. They're not connection platforms, they're not entertainment platforms, they're about addiction. And it's really good at doing that. What we found was some indicia of what's really going on there. So yes, within 2.6 minutes of opening an account as a 13-year-old girl in our test accounts in the US, UK, Canada, and Australia, within 2.6 minutes they were getting self-harm. Within 8 minutes they were getting eating disorder.
But were they looking for that stuff?
Is
that just because they were 13-year-old girls?
13-year-old girls. So brand new accounts on the For You page, which is what the algorithm wants you to see. Now, here's the really interesting insight. When we set up the accounts with normal names like, say, Susan, they got stuff every 39 seconds. When we set up the names as Susan Lose Weight, and as Ian will tell you, actually young people who are in distress often change their usernames or their bios to reflect the distress they're in. They got 12 times as much self-harm content. The platform it recognizes vulnerability, and rather than what all of us in this room would do to a child that was vulnerable, which is to treat them with care and concern and to understand that they may have specific needs, to be cautious around them. It says, I found their vulnerability, I'm going to exploit it because that's how the core logic behind my platform works. I need to make cash.
So how do they explain that? Because there's no way that a big, huge corporate entity would want to own that and say, yes, that's what we're doing. So how do they explain it?
During Molly's inquest, the witness who gave evidence under oath from Meta said that their algorithms are topic agnostic. They don't know what you're dealing with. And that's a really clever, subtle difference, because what they do on the other hand is sell lookalike audiences. So if you're a company and you want more people to come and buy your stuff, they know about that and they can find you. But they do it without direct reference to what you're looking at.
Right.
So it's a sort of loophole. So they have mechanisms that are designed into the way that they work that give them little scapegoats, little ways out of this. They say all the right words. They say that we take the safety of our users really seriously. But time after time after time, you find that those right words sound very convincing, but they're never backed up by action. Some of the same content that Molly saw 5 years ago is still on those platforms today.
We should just say that a Meta spokesperson after the inquest said that the company's thoughts are with the Russell family and everyone who'd been affected by this tragic death, and the company would carefully consider the coroner's full report. I mean, we have to say that because they're not here. But that's exactly what I was going to ask you, actually, Ian, just finally, is that what we're hearing about TikTok and the fact that if you put in a 13-year-old girl within 39 seconds, for some reason, you're getting this stuff. You must be, I mean, I'm stating the obvious here. You must just be thinking, well, someone just like Molly could be going through exactly the same thing right now as we sit here in the studio.
Absolutely. Sadly, I speak to parents all the time who have had very similar things happen to them, tragedies that happen. The facts are that there are something like 200 school-age children that die every year in the UK by suicide, and a lot of those will be prompted by what they find online. What's really important, though, is that change happens, that we make the world safer for our children, and the companies quite obviously aren't going to make that change happen for themselves. So what's really important is that legislation, effective legislation like the Online Safety Bill, is introduced by those by the governments of the world, so that the tech platforms suddenly have to take notice and make their platforms safe, and these tragedies can be prevented.
Okay. Ian, thank you very much for talking to us. It's Ian Russell, founder of the Molly Rose Foundation, and Imran Ahmed as well, Chief Exec of the Centre for Countering Digital Hate.